I'm Alyssa, and today I'm sharing with you my July favorites. And if you're new to my channel and don't know what favorites are, that's where I talk about my favorite movies, books, TV shows, video games, etc. that I've loved over the past month. And I hope to recommend things to you that you maybe didn't know about or were unsure about. So let's just get started. The book I loved in July was The Bride Test by Helen Huang. Helen is a friend of mine, and I adored her first novel, The Kiss Quotient, which this is I wouldn't say a direct sequel, but it's a spiritual sequel. It does have some of the same characters from the first novel, but you don't need to have read The Kiss Quotient to read The Bride Test. But this follows a woman named, I believe it's Esma, I think that's how you pronounce it, as she travels from Vietnam to California after she's approached by a woman in Vietnam to marry her son, Kai. And it's Esma's job to go to California and live with Kai for the summer and try to seduce him and get him to marry her because his mom wants him to get married. And it's just the story of Esma and Kai trying to navigate their new lives together. But the thing is, Kai has high-functioning autism. Esma doesn't know this, she doesn't know how to handle this, so the relationship has some obstacles. What I really liked about this book was the romance is a very slow burn. Esma is a very strong female character. She doesn't need Kai or his money. She just wants her family to be well off. She wants to take care of them. She's not really concerned about herself as much. She just wants her family to be taken care of. But she also knows her worth. She knows that she deserves respect, and I just fell in love with Esma, and it was such a nice treat to get to see the characters from The Kiss Quotient pop up again in this, but like I said, you don't have to have read that to know it. It's just a little extra if you do. And I loved it. This is the kind of romance I like. It does get steamy a couple times, but overall, this was a really well done novel. I loved it. Highly recommend it if you love romance. And yeah, it's really good autistic representation as well. And I cannot wait for the next novel in this kind of series centered on another character from the books. So I'm super excited, and I loved The Bride Test. So now for the movies I loved, which, by the way, if you want to see all the movies I watch, follow me on Letterboxd. I'll follow you back. But I love Letterboxd. You can rate and review movies you've seen, and your friends can see it, and you can just bond over that. I just love that app. Not sponsored. The first movie I loved in July was Spider-Man Far From Home. I really liked Homecoming, but Far From Home is so much better than Homecoming in every single way. Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man to date. He's just so charming, and he just fits the role of Peter Parker perfectly. And I freaking adored Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio / Quentin Beck. I've always loved Jake Gyllenhaal. He was my very first crush when I was 10 years old. The older man thing started very early, guys. Anyway, Jake Gyllenhaal, great. Also very pretty in this role. But I just loved seeing characters like Nick Fury and Maria Hill pop up. I love seeing the continuing journey of Peter being with his best friend Ned, dealing with his crush on MJ, etc., etc. And the story centers on the class after the blip, which is what happened in Infinity War and Endgame, going on a class trip to Europe, and, you know, just all chaos breaks loose, and Peter has to be Spider-Man and Peter Parker at the same time, and it's just a lot of fun. I'm not doing it justice with my description, but it's just so worth watching, especially after Endgame. It just cheers you up, and it's such a fun movie. And it does, I think, change the face of the MCU for a while, because you have to watch the end credit scenes because they are major. It seriously changes the trajectory of at least Spider-Man. So this film is phenomenal. Next up is one that not everyone is going to like, and that is Midsommar. This is by the same director that did Hereditary last year, Ari Aster. And Midsommar follows a couple, Danny and Christian, played by Florence Pugh and Jack Rayner. And their relationship is very rocky. Christian doesn't really want to be with Danny anymore, but he stays with her out of what he feels is his duty. And they decide to go with their friends to Sweden to participate in this festival that only happens once every 90 years. But when they get there, things aren't quite what they seem. That's all I'm gonna say. It's a very trippy movie. It's got a lot of hidden themes and allegories hidden in it. You really have to be paying attention to every second of the movie. There's a lot of disturbing imagery. If you thought Hereditary was disturbing, Midsommar, I think it's even worse in the best way possible. But if you're squeamish, do not watch this at all, please. Do yourself a favor, don't watch it, because your stomach will hate you for it. But I just loved how layered this story was. I love the themes in the story. I just loved the whole experience. It did not feel like it was a 2.5 hour movie to me. It went by very fast. I was super fascinated by the entire, I don't know how to describe it. Not just the story, the narrative, I guess. I loved everything. I loved the setting. It was just so creepy. But at the same time, you also felt kind of relaxed until something creepy happened, and I don't know. It's so hard to describe Midsommar. It's just a film you have to watch for yourself and make up your own mind about, but it is definitely a head effery movie. It's gonna mess with your mind. It might mess with your stomach. And it will definitely provoke thought, whether it's positive or negative, but I personally really loved Midsommar. I don't think it's as good as Hereditary, but it comes very close. The next movie is one that most people have already seen, and when they hear that I just watched it are probably going to want to kick me, but that is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I'm trying to watch a lot of Keanu Reeves movies this year because Keanu Reeves is just breathtaking, but I really love this movie, and I went in not expecting to like it that much because it's a comedy. I don't usually like comedies, but this is a pretty wholesome comedy. There are a couple of jokes that are not appropriate at this day and age, but back then were more appropriate, even though they weren't that appropriate, but still, you get my drift. But I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was funny. I love seeing Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter portray Ted and Bill, respectively. I love seeing George Carlin in the movie. I just like the whole thought about them gathering all these historical figures together for a school project so they don't flunk out. I just love this movie. I love the quotes in it. I am so totally excited to watch Bogus Journey and Face the Music when that comes out. And I just really love this movie. And I'm kicking myself for not having seen it sooner because it's just so... it's funny and cute and heartwarming, and it just makes your day. Another movie I loved that was heartwarming and made my day was Yesterday. This is such a unique film. This is directed by Danny Boyle, who directed 28 Days Later, Sunshine, Trainspotting, Slumdog Millionaire, etc. And it's written by Richard Curtis, who directed About Time, but also wrote Love Actually, Notting Hill, etc. And this stars Himesh Patel as a man named Jack, who is a struggling musician, and his manager is also his best friend, and she is played by Lily James and totally steals every scene she's in. But one day there's this global blackout that lasts for about 12 seconds, and Jack gets hit by a bus during this blackout, and when he comes to, he realizes that no one in the world remembers the Beatles besides him, so he takes this to his advantage and starts singing their songs, and takes credit for their work, saying that he wrote them, and it's about him gaining fame and notoriety singing these songs, while also feeling like he's being an imposter, trying to figure out his relationship with Ellie, who is so obviously head over heels in love with him, but he is just so ignorant and oblivious, and it's just like, okay, come on, if Lily James was in love with you, you would know, but that's beside the point. This was such a charming movie. I love the music. Oh my gosh, I have the soundtrack and I listen to it all the time. It made me smile, it made me laugh, I teared up a little bit. It's just such a feel-good movie. The next movie is Mommy, Dead and Dearest. This is the documentary that focuses on Gypsy Rose Blanchard and Dee Dee Blanchard. And if you don't know the story, I won't spoil it for you because you just need to watch the documentary. But it is disturbing. It does feature some gruesome imagery, but it's very informative. It shows both sides of the story. It shows people that think she did the right thing, did the wrong thing. It's just very informative, and it really made me want to watch The Act, the television show on Hulu. But it's such a fascinating case, and I highly recommend you check out the documentary. And the last movie I loved in July was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is the 9th film from Quentin Tarantino, and I loved it. It's not my favorite, but I loved this movie. I loved how it was set in Hollywood 1969. You see cameos from people portraying Charles Manson, Bruce Lee. You see Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate, but I love the dynamic between Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt as a fading TV and movie star and his stunt double, respectively. This movie is chock full of cameos from other celebrities, and the story goes in directions you don't think it would. And it is a very long movie. It's almost 3 hours long, but it went by in a flash for me. I was just so enraptured with the setting of 1969, of being in California, of the music, of the atmosphere, the way people live, the culture, just everything about it was so amazing. I felt like it was pretty much spot on, besides when Tarantino obviously went off book, off history, and made up his own little fantasy sections. But I love this movie. I thought it was very well done. And like I said, it's not my favorite Tarantino film, but I mean, it's up there. It's good. It's really good. But if you're not a fan of Tarantino, this is not going to change your mind about him, because this is very Tarantino. Now moving on to TV, the first show I loved was Years and Years. This is a limited series that aired on HBO in America, but came out on the BBC overseas. And I loved it. I loved it. I was so invested. It's like a mixture of Black Mirror and a family drama. And it has some comedy elements also speckled in. But it's mostly focused on the family. And the family in question is the Lyons family. And you see them as they progress through several years. And you see how their lives change. Tragedies that befall them. Victories they have. Scandals that rock them. And this show just constantly had me on the edge of my seat. I was fascinated the entire time, every episode. I loved how it portrayed the future of our world, the future of the UK. Emma Thompson is great as the Prime Minister in this series, because she just is amazing in pretty much everything. But I also loved all the other actors and actresses. And oh man, this show devastated me. By the end, I was emotionally wrecked, but it's so good. I highly recommend you check it out. Again, it's only 6 episodes long, so you can easily binge it. And the other show I loved was obviously Stranger Things 3, the show that everyone loved in July. This just continues the story of the kids from Hawkins, but this is set in 1985, I believe, because that's when Back to the Future came out. But it's just so much fun. It ups the stakes a lot. It has more personal, tragic elements in it. And I loved it. I'm so excited to see where season 4 goes. And I'm excited to see where the characters go after this season. Because this season had a lot of major punches in it. A lot of moments that, you know, turn the series upside down. If you've seen the show, you just got that pun. But I mean, I loved it. It was just a nostalgia fueled, even though I wasn't even born then, ride, and I loved Stranger Things 3 and highly recommend you check it out. And lastly, a video game that I loved in July and I'm still loving because it's a long ass game is Judgment. This is the latest game from the studio that made the Yakuza series, and you follow and play a detective named Takayuki Yagami. And again, it's in Kamurocho, which the Yakuza series was also set in. And you're just going around trying to solve this murder case, but obviously there's side cases you can pick up, like finding people's cheating spouses, finding children that have been lost, finding cats. Oh my gosh, there's so many cat missions in this game, it's crazy. You can get a girlfriend and woo her with presents and take her on dates to different places depending on how old she is. You can do mini games like darts, and you can play Space Harrier and go to batting cages. There's just so much to do in this game, and it's so well fleshed out. Aside from the drone sections and the stealth sections, which aren't that great, to be honest. They're not bad, but they're not great. This is a knockout game. I love it. I'm addicted to it, and I always want to play it now. It even haunts my dreams. So I am in love with Judgment, and even if you haven't played the Yakuza series, I always had trouble saying that, Yakuza series. That's hard to say together. If you haven't played the Yakuza series, you can still enjoy this game because you do not need to have prior knowledge. So those are my favorites for the month of July. Let me know what you loved in July down below in the comment box. Like the video if you liked it. Share it if you liked it because that helps me out immensely. You have no idea. If you're new here but you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. And even if you are subscribed already but haven't tapped the notification bell, please tap it, because that will alert you whenever I upload a new video. If you'd like to follow me on social media sites, those are all listed down below in the description box. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!